So quieter. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Tuesdays night as of now at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So welcome back. We're not going to be here long. I think I done covered all of what I want to cover with the war, with XRP. So tonight is just a rehash or the recovering of what it is all about. And I'm just here to remind people that this world is now has changed. It is flipped back to being black. I'm spitting everywhere. So, with that being said, I want to make sure that you guys are aware of what the hell is going on, why it's going on, what is going on, and how to take advantage of the situation, and that we're not the culprit, the evil culprit of the world. And we're going to see that tonight. So, with my not spitting anymore. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna add them to the page. What's up, brother?
What's up, bro? How you?
You got it. Well, I'm spitting everywhere.
You ain't spitting on me.
Well, that's the main point.
You spitting at me, maybe, but not on me.
No, not on you. All right, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. How's
That's
your
cool.
family?
Yeah. So, what we're gonna be covering today, man, it's the same shit that we've been covering, but being more precise about what I sent you and what this means and how it means and why it means and what we can do individually and collectively. Hold on, to take advantage of the situation and come out cleaner than a broke big dog. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
that's what it's all about, man. You know, we can talk about the blockade and Trump and Iraq and Iran and for days on end, but what do we get out of it? So tonight, I want to really focus in on the get down with the get down, and how can we financially, economically improve ourselves to the point where we are where we are and where we want to be. And uh, the overall gist of it is to accept the fact that right here in between your two ears is where the promised land is at. The more you water it with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, the more you get out of it, and the more you can manifest the things you want to see in your life.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not hard. This is not my words. These are the words of our ancestors. I might be saying it different. It might be more plausible. It might be more effective. It might be more acceptable. But the idea is still the same. The secret is not a secret. We are what we are when we say we are. You know what I mean? So,
Yes, sir.
any thoughts before we move on to the show? Because we're
Only
not gonna be here like that long. Go ahead.
listen. I'm only gonna be able to do a half hour.
Oh shit!
Um,
we'd be lucky if we last that long.
yeah, whatever. You say that every time. I bet you the last show was at least 2 hours. No, listen, real talk. I'm only gonna
Yeah.
be able to do the first half hour. If you're still on, I gotta go somewhere. But if you're still on when I get back, I'll come back in. I just
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
let
All
you
right.
know. So if I cut out, you
Okay.
don't, start thinking,
Okay.
I
All
lost
right. Well,
connection.
let's get to the real deal, Holyfield, because this is the reason why cops were created, not for us, but for you nasty ass, down low, uncivilized beasts of animals.
You talking about those who came from Europe as criminals and
Yes. There
deviants
you
and
go.
yeah.
This shit is not hard to see. King James was sending these motherfuckers over here because they were the criminals of the criminals.
Well,
They was
actually,
they was
before
they were sent to Australia because they were criminals. And so this is
Australia is a
yeah. I'm
penal
sorry.
colony.
Right.
It was a penal colony. It was a straight up penal colony. That's what it was
Right.
for. Like, okay,
Right,
bang, we gonna bang your ass. You go over there and make it.
right. And look at what happened through the centuries and the crime rate of the people. So we're going to be covering that, and so let's get right into it. It's only 15 minutes long. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Solved an expensive problem. They'd been paying for private guards to watch their ships. They paid more guards to protect cargo moving between the port and warehouses. The cost was cutting into their profits every single year. So they proposed something that would change American history forever. What if the public paid for their security instead? What if they called the whole arrangement a police department? That is not a theory, but documented history from Boston's own records. It changes everything you think you know about American policing. Because for the first 200 years of this country, there were none. No departments, no precincts, no badges, no uniforms, no one to call. The story of how that changed is not the story you were taught. Before 1838, American cities relied on a system inherited from medieval England called the night watch. Boston started one in 1636, New York followed in 1658, Philadelphia in 1700. The concept was simple. Volunteers would walk the streets from sunset to sunrise, carrying a rattle and a 6-foot pole painted blue and white. They watched for fires, listened for disturbances, and were supposed to confront criminals. If they spotted trouble, they raised what was called a hue and cry, shaking the rattle and shouting until nearby citizens came running to help. The watchman himself was not expected to handle the problem alone. He was an alarm system with legs. In practice, the entire operation was a disaster. Watchmen routinely drank on duty. They slept through their shifts. Some communities required watchmen to call out the hour aloud, not to inform the public, but to prove the watchman was still awake. And here is the detail that reframes the entire system. In many colonies, night watch duty was assigned as punishment. If you committed a petty crime, your sentence might be walking the streets at night pretending to keep other people safe. The person protecting your neighborhood might be doing it because he got caught stealing from someone else's. It gets worse. Every able-bodied man could be called to serve on the watch. But if you were wealthy enough, you could pay a substitute. And who did the wealthy hire? According to crime historian Gary Potter, the substitutes were often criminals and community thugs. So the choice was this. Your street was either patrolled by a convicted criminal serving a sentence, or a hired criminal paid by someone rich enough to avoid the duty himself. That was the system. For 200 years. The constables who supervised the night watch were barely better. They worked on a fee basis, paid per warrant served. Their income depended not on preventing crime, but on processing it. The more warrants they served, the more they earned. The more arrests they made, the better their year. Nobody measured whether the neighborhood was safe. Nobody counted crimes prevented. The only metric was crimes processed for payment. This was not public safety. This was a business model. And nobody rich enough to matter was complaining because they had private security.
Mm-hmm.
While the North ran this broken volunteer operation, the South built something entirely different. In 1704, the Carolina colonies established the first formal slave patrols. Groups of armed white men on horseback, authorized to stop, search, and brutalize enslaved people, found...
Now, I'm just going to interject here. You know that the first ever reference of a police or policemen was in Egypt. Let's continue.
without written permission from their enslaver. Virginia followed in 1727, North Carolina in 1753. By the end of the century, every slaveholding state had them. The patrol oath required men to swear they would search for guns, swords, and other weapons among the enslaved. That oath is the earliest known sworn statement of American law enforcement, not a promise to protect citizens, a promise to search for weapons among people being held against their will. These were not informal bosses. These were organized, government-sanctioned forces with specific jurisdictions and regular schedules. By 1837, Charleston's slave patrol had over 100 officers. That made it the largest organized policing force in America, larger than any city's night watch, larger than any constable system in the North. The first professional law enforcement apparatus in this country was not designed to stop crime. It was designed to stop freedom. Now, here is where the standard explanation comes in, and it deserves a fair hearing. Cities were growing explosively in the early 1800s. New York's population hit 400,000. The night watch of 80 men was laughably inadequate for a city that size. Crime was rising, riots were frequent, immigration was accelerating, and with it, social friction. Something had to change, and the British model of professional policing, created by Robert Peel in London in 1829, offered a template. All of that is true. I am not disputing that cities needed better systems. The night watch was genuinely failing. What I am questioning is who the new system was designed for, because the evidence points somewhere very specific, and it is not toward the general public. Boston in 1838 was one of the largest shipping centers in America. Merchants had been spending their own money on private guards to protect property at the port and along trade routes. Then someone realized the math could work differently. If protecting commercial goods could be reframed as a matter of collective public safety, the cost would shift from merchants to taxpayers. The city created the day police. 6 officers working under the city marshal, the first publicly funded police force in American history, not created by a vote of citizens demanding protection, created by commercial interests who found a way to make everyone else pay their security bills. The full Boston Police Department followed in 1854 with 250 officers. Each one paid $2 per shift. Their primary task was maintaining order, which in practice meant protecting property and controlling the populations that threatened commercial activity. New York followed in 1845. The state legislature authorized up to 800 officers, and what happened next should concern anyone who believes the system was designed to function. The officers refused to wear uniforms, not quietly. They organized a public rally that drew 1,500 people. Officers stood before the crowd and called the proposed uniform a badge of civility. They declared they were no serfs. They said that being forced to identify themselves as police were very popular freedoms. Some were dismissed for refusing to comply. They appealed to the courts. It took 8 years of bitter public debate before New York finally adopted uniforms in 1853. The first outfit was a leather helmet, a blue frock coat buttoned to the neck, and grey trousers with a black stripe. 20 years later, in 1874, officers still reported that wearing the uniform drew insulting remarks from the public. These men were hired to keep order. They carried 14-inch clubs, and they did not want anyone to know they were police. The public did not want to know either. Both sides distrusted the institution from its first day. There was no training. None. Officers were appointed for 1 or 2 year terms, nominated by the alderman of whatever political ward they lived in. If the ward leader liked you, you got a badge. If he did not, you were gone. By the 1870s, the Tammany Hall political machine controlled nearly every appointment in the New York department. Positions were bought and sold openly. The police did not serve the public. They served whoever had enough political power to put them on the street. I spent 3 weeks with this material before I could figure out how to present it. Not because the evidence is thin, the opposite. There is so much documented so plainly in sources that are not obscure or contested that the real difficulty is explaining why none of it is common knowledge. I kept circling back to one thing that genuinely troubled me. The Boston Police Department's own official website describes its history. It lists the dates. It names the night watch. It mentions the day police of 1838. All of this information is right there, publicly available on a government website. There is no cover-up. There is no conspiracy of silence. There is just a version of the story with the financial motivation edited out, told so flatly that nobody thinks to ask who benefited. You learn about the Boston Tea Party in school. You learn about the Constitutional Convention. You do not learn that the first police officers in American history were merchant-funded guards who refused to be identified and served at the pleasure of political bosses. That omission is not accidental. It is structural. The same way you do not learn that America had no birth certificates until the early 1900s, or that street addresses were invented for purposes that had nothing to do with mail delivery, and the structure broke down faster than anyone expected. 12 years after New York created its police force, the city had 2 of them. Mayor Fernando Wood controlled the municipal police, a force loyal to his democratic political machine. In 1857, the Republican state legislature created a new metropolitan police force to replace Wood's men. Wood refused to disband. On June 16, 1857, the 2 forces attacked each other on the steps of City Hall. Officers in blue fought officers in blue. Neither side knew which force had legal authority. One contemporary account described 5 Points criminals dancing in the streets while the two police forces brawled. Arrests made by one force were overturned by the other. Suspects were captured by municipal officers and immediately released by metropolitan officers. The entire concept of law and order collapsed into farce. The National Guard had to be called in. The State Court of Appeals eventually ruled the Metropolitan Police legitimate. 12 years. That is how long it took for American policing to descend into a physical war with itself. The institution was so thoroughly controlled by political interests that two rival power structures created two rival armies, and the citizens those armies were supposed to protect watched from the sidelines while their taxes funded both. Follow the money forward, and the pattern holds. By the 1880s, NYPD Superintendent Thomas Burns had accumulated personal wealth of $350,000. Adjusted for inflation, that is roughly $9.6 million today. Where did a police superintendent get that kind of money? From investments, made on his behalf by Cornelius Vanderbilt and Jay Gould. Two of the wealthiest men in America were personally enriching the head of the city's police force. In exchange, the NYPD provided what historians describe as the ruthless suppression of unions and political dissent. The city's bankers, stockbrokers, and real estate developers tolerated police corruption because the police kept their boots on the throat of organized labor. Taxpayers funded the force. The wealthy directed it. The superintendent pocketed the gratitude. That triangle is not an aberration. It is the blueprint. And it scaled. By the 1880s, every major American city had a police department, all publicly funded, all modeled on the same basic structure, all answering not to voters but to political machines and commercial interests. The expansion was driven not by rising crime alone, but by the need to control labor. Waves of Irish, Italian, German, and Eastern European immigrants were arriving in cities. They were forming unions, they were organizing strikes, they were demanding better wages. And the people who profited from their labor needed a publicly funded mechanism to keep them working. That is not speculation. Crime historian Gary Potter documents that fears of labor, union organizers, and immigrant populations drove the expansion of police forces across every major city by the end of the century. If your family came through Ellis Island, if your great-grandparents worked the docks or the factories or the railroads, consider this. The police force in their city was not built to protect them. It was built to manage them. Think about what this means for you right now. The structure has not changed. The badges look different. The training exists now, in theory. But the financial architecture is identical. Total government spending on policing in the United States reached $237.7 billion in 2024, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis. The NYPD's budget alone exceeds $5.4 billion annually. In most American cities, policing is the single largest line item in the general fund. 40 to 60% of everything the city spends. You fund this every year. A system that began because a group of shipping merchants in 1838 decided their private security costs should become your problem. I want to be careful here. The point is not that police serve no purpose or that public safety is unimportant. That is an easy dismissal that avoids the harder question. The question is whether an institution engineered from its first hour to serve commercial interests was ever structurally capable of serving the public. One that was controlled from its first decade by political machines, corrupted from its first generation by financial elites. The night watchmen were drunks and criminals. The slave patrols were state-sponsored terror. The first police departments were merchant-funded, politically operated patronage systems. Each phase was built on the foundation of the last, not reformed, absorbed, expanded, renamed. You walk past police stations every day. You see the cruisers parked on your block. You dial the number without thinking. It feels permanent, like something that has always been here. But it has not always been here. For most of American history, it was not here at all. And when it arrived not because citizens demanded protection. It arrived because someone with money realized they could make the public pay for what they used to pay for themselves. The receipts survive. The timeline is clean. The names are in the public record. The question nobody puts in the textbooks is the one that matters most. If the people who built this system did not build it for you, then who was it built for? And if it is still running on the same financial architecture 2 centuries later, is it possible the answer has not changed? $237 billion a year. Same architecture. Same question. The night watchman's rattles went silent a long time ago. The 6-foot poles were retired. The slave patrols lost their legal authority in 1865 and reorganized under different names. But the bills never stopped coming. They just got bigger. And the line between who pays and who benefits has never been fully redrawn. $237 billion every year, taken from the public to fund an institution that the public never designed, never requested, and was never given the chance to build from scratch. It was designed that way in 1838, and nobody redesigned it since. The merchants are gone. The invoice remains.
Any questions, man? Any thoughts?
Not really. I do want to. I have a comment, and not really a question. As far as that's all what was said, um, it was pretty accurate. I didn't know that uh the initial police departments. I knew the first one was in Boston, in what is
Right,
now known as the United States, because we have to understand in those times it wasn't known as the United States; it was known as the colonies of Britain.
right.
But with that said,
Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Yeah, these guys, look, these young men around here. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
okay, yeah, no, what happened was we have to understand that um, for the most part, when slaves escaped the South, they went
Uh huh.
north. They went north with the destination usually being a free state, and then when the slave patrols merged with those who weren't sympathetic to slavery in the
Right,
North, it formed the police department as one.
right.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
even and of course, people who are rich are going to have security because they know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you good. So of course the police departments, excuse me, the rich people up north were going to have security, what is known as security. But what happened was white dudes from the south looking for their bosses or slave master to a slave, uh, uh, started clashing with dudes from the south. So they
Hmm.
formed police departments based on the slave patrols to control it, to say, hey, if we catch this guy, you got to give us something because we caught him for you, as
Right,
opposed to y'all coming up here and we don't know who that guy is, but y'all just snatching him and taking him away. So
right.
it became a symbiotic thing as opposed to like something that developed on its own as a result. So I didn't kind of agree with the beginning of it, but because we know that the slave patrols were happening ever since slavery was instituted in what is now known as the United States. So there's a
Okay.
little asterisk to what was said without the context. That's it. That's all.
I'm sorry, but can you include the take on the Irish gangs, like the movie took place?
You
Because they
talking about
were criminal
gangs,
elements.
gangs in New York?
Right, right, right,
Okay, that's a very, and I'm glad. I was thinking about that at the beginning of the presentation, because before the 1900s, the white boy was the actual criminal, and the black people who were emancipated were criminalized. There's a difference.
right,
You know what I'm saying? That's when the laws, the black codes came in and so on and so forth. You couldn't have a push cart. You couldn't be out after a certain time. You couldn't do this. You couldn't do that. You can't raise your hand to a white man even if he disrespected you, blah, blah, blah. So this
right.
is why I say black people were criminalized as opposed to um, uh,
Being criminals.
being actual criminals, correct. You know what I'm saying? Self-defense is not criminality. But
Right,
with going back to your premise with the movie Gangs of New York and those kind of we have to understand that when the Irish, the Italians, and maybe one or two other groups from Europe started coming over in droves after slavery, and that was to block the black man out. And those laws instituted, along with redlining and all that other stuff that came
Right.
along with it. We have to understand something. When the Irish and Italians in particular came over, they weren't considered black. Excuse me, white.
Right.
They were
Right.
considered
Yeah.
something other. There's a
Right.
book called "When the Italian when I don't remember when they became white."
Mm-hmm.
But then the slave master started realizing instead of keeping them low, we can create them as a buffer class so that we can keep black people depressed. To this day, that system still
Right.
exists.
Right. Right.
So that's why
Also,
we used to hear in our generation when we were younger. Yeah, my grandfather came over here. He didn't know the language. He had $10 in his pocket, and look what he built, and so on and so forth.
right.
They
Right.
came, they weren't afforded those luxuries. They were,
Right.
if you remember and you're from, I don't want to say where you're from or wherever but I'm sure you've heard of the book, The Jungle.
Right.
You ever read that book?
Book of the Jungle, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So then you already know what I'm talking about. To those of y'all
Mm-hmm.
out there who never read it, read that book. It's very important because when the Irish and the Italians came over in particular, Polish too, they were made to work in these places that were like probably worse conditions than the slaves actually were.
Right.
And a
Right.
lot of them died, and a lot of them were, beat up and abused too. There's another book. Um, I don't remember the name of it. It's by William Lawrence Katz, and it's about how when before Harlem became what it was, how they kept moving blacks up north, and that's why most of North Manhattan is blacks and Latinos now. But I'm
Right.
talking about
Right.
before the
Before
1800s,
that.
or
Right.
maybe early in the 1900s. That
Okay.
explained how some of the Italians and Irish mixed with the blacks because they were considered niggers when they got here.
Right. Right. Right.
Some
Right.
became
Mm-hmm.
cops. Some married into black families and was like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay with y'all because we people. And some were like in the middle until they were given the rights to be. Of course, they want to come up to be white now, and
Right. Right. Right.
aspire to
Right.
go up to the higher classes. So I just wanted to add those things in there.
Right. Now, don't forget, prior to 1965, the number of people in prison were 90% were white.
Yep.
So after that, when you get into street strikes, three strikes, and the influx of drugs in our black community, when we began to see the influx of more black people into the justice system. So it's been a hell of a ride, but it never fails that the truth always comes out. So let's get on because you don't have that long to go. And it ain't gonna be long before I do this one. Now it says Holocaust denial, the radical notion. Oh yeah, the radical notion that the people who lied about human soap, human skin lamp shades, shrunken heads, steam chambers, electric floors, roller coasters of death, anus gas pumps, and the
Wait.
pedal-driven
Hold on, hold on,
brain.
hold on, hold on. Go
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
Say what?
anal-driven. What is it? And the pedal. Wait,
Huh?
anus gas pumps and the pedal-driven brain bashing machine.
Wait.
On
Hold up. Go
on.
back. Now, explain that
Okay,
anal
I'm
shit.
going to read it again. I'm going to read it again.
I'm
The
sorry.
Holocaust did not. The radical notion that the people who lied about human soap, human skin lampshades, shrunken heads, steam chambers, electric floors, roller coasters of death, anus gas pump, and the pedal-driven brain bashing machine aren't telling the truth about death showers. In other words, uh, there weren't ever, never 6 million people who died in the Holocaust. That's a lie. You wanna expand on that?
Um, I've heard. I've never been there, so I can't speak on it. But I heard in one of those death camps or one of them, they say that there's a sign that says that 6 million Jews died. Now, this is facts based on records that were around before we were born. So this
Right.
ain't me saying it. This ain't you saying it. These are facts. It said that
Right.
6 million people died. At the
Right.
time, I believe the Jewish population on the earth's surface was 1.5 million. And that number never went up or down
There
significantly
you
in
go. There you go. There you go.
records. So this is not me. And if they're that little of a people, then it would be a marked um it would be obvious that
Right.
many people disappeared and that never happened. At best, there are people who have studied this, who've gone to Germany and Poland and all the countries that Hitler allegedly invaded, that said that at most it was 100,000 people, and the ruins show that not all of those people were of Jewish ethnicity. They focus on the Jews
They-
to keep you in this. So many of them died, it can never happen again, and so on and so forth. But it was mainly Egyptians and old people, retards,
Right.
or whatever, people who just wouldn't be able to function in life, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And then not Zionists, but Jews who just wanted to be left to their own devices. I don't want to kill nobody. I don't want to fuck with them either, but I don't want to kill them. I'm here in
Right.
my little village. I got my butcher shop, my dry cleaning business, my tailor business, whatever, and I'm
Right.
fine. Saying I got my family and I'm good. So those were the people they were killing. Not to say that none of them died, but they weren't killing just anybody. And in
Right.
fact, the ones that were Zionists or was sympathetic to the Zionistic causes were told to leave because we're about to pop off with this stuff.
Right.
Right.
All right. So you got to remember too, in Treblinka, they did a ground search with these sonars and finding out that the soil was never disturbed, along with the fact that there were never any, if ever, showers of death and so on and so forth. And the most important thing is the idea that they talked about 6 million Jews dying 30 years before the fucking goddamn World War II. So how in the fuck are you going to keep saying that bullshit? So they took advantage of that and made a business out of it.
Right.
Not only stealing the African Hebraic way of life, but also laying claim to this 6 million Jews being killed. It's a fucking farce, man. And they done collected hundreds of billions of dollars for these fake ass Jews who got money from the United States and around the world.
I don't even know if you I don't even know if you know the governor of New York. Her name is Kathy Hochul.
Yeah,
Gave Jews reparations in New York about 2 or 3 years ago. And
really. I didn't.
the Holocaust didn't even happen in any way called the United States of America.
Right,
Why are
right. So
you rewarding people? Yet you got millions of black people there who can trace some of their family to slavery, and every time the black people talk about in the United States in particular, every time black people talk about getting reparations, oh, we got to put a study out, we got to do this, we
right,
don't have the money. They paid the Japanese for being in internment camps for less than 4 years, hundreds of thousands, and only the ones that experienced it got any money.
right. You're right.
So the
And,
precedents and the examples have already been set. So there's no reason. They know if they give black people money, they'll change the color of the money and make the money that they gave them
of
not
course,
more.
of course.
Yeah, you
Okay.
know, it's fact.
Let me say, hey, brother Willie, thank you for being here, man. I really appreciate it, like always. So we're gonna cut it out. We're gonna cut it loose in a second. Hold on, we did that one. Now this is hold on, let me go back. Birthplace of the slaves, St. Kitts in 1817. The larger groups of slaves came from the following tribes: Mandinka, Fulani, Temne, Fante, Igbo, and Congo. Unnamed group: Northwestern Bantu, Mesturado, and Hinterland. So let's see. the number of slaves. Malinka, Mandingo, Mundingo, 500. You can see from here. Total is 600. Here, the birthplace of St. Kitts, 1817. 1300 from Central Africa. Unidentified, Manny, Kruger, so on and so forth. And the overall is the total Creoles. You know where Creoles come from? 20,000. So what I'm saying, and what this is saying, what we've been saying, is that there was no importation, hardly if ever, or any of any Western Africans coming from West Africa to the Americas, not America proper, the North America. I'm talking about period. The America consists of the Caribbean islands, Canada, North America, Central America, and South America, right? So when you're looking at all of these, and you're talking about, well, what about the book? What about them motherfucking boat, bitch? They were talking about 100 million souls lost, bitch. There wasn't that big. No. And then they come up with this map of dots going from South America. I'm sorry, from West Africa to the America and back again. And some of these dots is bigger than your fucking hand, and other ones are as small as the fingernail. You know what I mean? What the big ones were like cruise ship? Give me a fucking break. But the idea is that the narrative that they're trying to tell you is that you a nigga. You started with slaves. No, the importation of slaves were white folks. See, they're trying to run that game on you. And if they were already coming in, mastering and being sitting up on the steps or on the master step, the house step, the big house, motherfucker, they were already out there uh, picking cotton, picking tobacco, and picking something else that they were picking. These motherfuckers came over here as slaves. Whether they were indentured servants, you can call them. You can call a slave an indentured servant all you want. It's still the same motherfucking shit. They were there for life, and you can see that the first people who had slaves were these black people that were in America. These were Indians. We are the true Indians of America. And
In
so,
particular, brother Isaiah,
yeah, go ahead.
Amerindians to
Huh?
distinct. In particular, I'm talking about in America now.
Right.
Amerindians to distinguish that from the Indian from India.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I'll go with that.
Remember,
Uh,
hold on. Let me say something else
yeah.
too, real quick,
Okay. Right.
because we have to understand something. They called it to marry.
To marry to.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's where the word. And then when it became a difference between India and what was considered America, that's why they shortened it to Amerindian or
MIT.
India, right?
Okay.
Because
Right.
Mary actually means Turtle Island.
Right. There you
Right.
go.
So you
There you
have to
go.
make the distinction. And now
Right.
that a lot of people in America, in particular African Americans, but now that people all over the world, or let me say America to separate it, have found out that a lot of us were already here and,
There you go.
in that thing, you know what I'm saying? And this is why the foundational Black American thing, ADOS, which means African descendant, American
Right.
descendant slavery, to
Right.
distinguish that from any other people
Right.
is such a big deal now, and why it's such a big deal as far as delineation is concerned, so that we can say we're not African and we need to get what's owed to us as a separate and distinct class from people who came here recently, the third, fourth generations, and now they're claiming they're African American because they don't know nothing about Africa or
Right. Right.
Jamaica or
Right.
wherever. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
this is a big thing now going on, and African Americans are old
Right.
because we're already here. You know what I'm saying? They try to give
Mm-hmm.
you a story to make you chase your lineage there when that ain't the case for the most part.
Right. And two things I want to focus in on is that it was in reverse. When
Go
Christopher
ahead.
Columbus, when Christopher Columbus came, his first stop was not violence here, right here in the Haiti and the Dominican Republic. He came in peace, but after going back and getting the paperwork, the paper bull from the Pope, and saying, "Well, bring what you can bring, and let it be what it's going to be," he started killing it. The second trip. So when he came the second trip, he brought back to Europe slaves that were prisoners of war. We weren't slaves like the Slavic Indo-European. We were slaves because we were prisoners of war. Now, and when you interject that with the fact that the Jews of Portugal and Spain in the Middle East were transported after 1492 because there was a crippling effect of their wealth that the Christian blacks wanted their money, wanted their wealth for them, and so they said, "Well, fuck this shit. We're gonna ride or die, motherfucker. We riding because we ain't dying. We taking all your shit." And that's the reason why you see a lot of these so-called Jews who were black. And I don't like to say white Jew, black Jew. I mean, the white Jews don't count. This was a black on black crime that was religiously based. And after 1492, those Jews were transported to the west coast of Africa, and finally and permanently throughout the world, and particularly the Americas. So you get this intermixing, if I can say that, between the Jews and the Amerindians, who will tell you that they have some Semitic blood within them, and that is true. 90% of African Americans are of Portuguese and Spanish origin blood that were that of Jews. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but that's where we are.
You know
So you
what?
want to make
I gotta go, but we
okay,
need.
okay,
Hold on.
okay,
I just
please.
want to say this, and then I
All
gotta
right.
go. We need to do a show specifically on that because that has a lot of components to it that we
Okay,
can't.
well let's do that Saturday night, man. I'll bring you. I'll bring you. I'll send you the information. You can get used to it, and then we'll talk about it in depth.
Okay, that's what's up,
All right,
brother.
peace, man. All
All
right,
right.
stay black.
Hopefully, I'll come back. If not, I'll see you soon.
Oh, okay. No, I'll be gone by the time you get back. It ain't gonna be long.
Okay, brother.
All right, peace.
You say that all
All
the
right.
time. Peace.
Stay black. All right, so here we are. So we did that one, and like I said, we're not going to be here that long. Now, this one had to do with what Trump is doing, supposedly that we're going from the maritime law to land law, and that all of the gold that the Vatican had and around the world is back within the treasury of the United States, and we're supposed to be rich, whatever that may mean. So here we go. The U.S. debt clock just updated. It now showing a USA Treasury reserve and a refund per taxpayer 80,000 plus, and it's counting up in real time. It also shows income tax crossed out, corporate tax crossed out, and DeFi bankless future. And here we go. Let's listen to it.
The US debt clock just updated and it is showing something very different. It is now reflecting the USA Treasury Reserve and refund per taxpayer over $80,000. And as you can see, it is counting up in real time. And if you hover over, let's just say the USA Treasury Reserve, it'll actually give you a description of what it actually means. This is information that is running in real time, and they're pulling the information from the USA Treasury. So let me break it down for you super simple of what it means. The USA Treasury Reserve is basically saying if you add up all the real stuff that America owns, let's just say like land, gold, buildings, and resources, we're going to get that figure. That is the total value. Think of it like a gigantic piggy bank for the country. And if you hover over refund per taxpayer, you'll get the forfeited asset proceeds from the criminal money laundering and racketeering activities of the Federal Reserve banking syndicate. Over $83,000. That is wild.
Refunds per taxpayer means if we were to split up that value, that is how much each taxpayer would get. Now, that doesn't mean that they're just going to be sending out checks tomorrow. This right here is a calculation. It is a reflection, a model. But what it does show in real time behind all of that debt is that there is actual value. And then it gets crazier. Income tax crossed out, corporate taxes crossed out, counting in real time a DeFi bankless future and a income tax-free future. Then it shows all of this hidden wealth, right? All of this gold, land, real estate, energy, all totaling up over $200 trillion in assets that are being tracked. Right now, the system runs on debt. Money is created and you pay it back with interest. What it is showing is a mirror, a reflection, a system backed by real stuff. Not debt, but ownership. On one side, you got the current system with high interest, taxes, debt, and it stays forever. On the other side, we have low interest, no income, and ownership by we, the people. Then it starts hinting at something even bigger. A shift away from the Federal Reserve System over and back to the U.S. Treasury. A new USA Treasury dollar, a dollar that is not backed by debt. It is actually backed by real world assets. Transparent, verifiable, and tied to actual value. Now, here's the part that many people are missing because they think it's going to be going through the big banks when that's not going to be the case at all. It's actually going to be going through the credit unions. Think of credit unions like small community banks that is owned by you, not big, gigantic, for-profit corporations. So instead of the profits going to a big bank establishment that has shareholders, it's actually going to go back to we, the people. So what you're seeing on the usdebtclock.org is like a blueprint, a shift from debt to assets, control to ownership, banks to the people. And this kind of system can only work with a new infrastructure, a compliant and regulated blockchain system that connects the banks and the credit unions. Put it in the comments if you know what blockchain system I'm talking about. Now, if you want to see the blueprints for yourself, make sure you go over to the usdebtclock.org, click on the secret window tab, and download the free book, The New Money Revolution. After you have read it, then come back and tell me, do you believe that this is real or are they trying to tell us something even deeper? But this is why it is so important to know what you hold. Let's go.
All right. Now you got to I don't know if you remember, but you have to take into consideration that this world is changing. We're gone from the petrodollar now to the petro yuan, and the fact that Africa, the United States of Africa, is live and thriving and will be the fourth to be dealt with. The world is fading back to black, you guys. I mean, it can't be undone. It can't be reimagined. Out of 8 billion people, only a small group will understand this early. Not everyone is supposed to make it. That's the point. So these are the number of people, 6 who have 6 accounts with a million, with a billion number of accounts and some are balanced. Okay, with the number of XRP that they have, they got 3, 6, 9, they got 9 billion XRP that amounts up to about a billion to infinity. You got 19 accounts with 500,000 to a billion, 65 from 100 million to 500 million, and so on and so on and so on all the way down. And this is where I'm at. I got 120,000 XRP. So you're looking at a future of about 4 billion, about $5 billion. See that? Get in with XRP. If you got 20 to 500, this is what the total wealth will be. You got 0 to 20, this is what it would be, 23 million. All right, you heard it here first. And now you hear Ripple CEO. XRP will be 121,590, $122,000. 650 trillion market cap to surpass Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going down to zero. Hold on, let me
Greg Gillinghouse, Ripple CEO, the guy that runs XRP, has just stated that the XRP market cap will rise to over $650 trillion. This is massive because when you look at the market cap of Bitcoin right now, this second, Bitcoin's market cap is around 1.4 trillion. Well, Ripple CEO said that XRP's market cap will surpass 650 trillion, surpassing Bitcoin in both price and market cap, resulting in a possible price of about $121,590 per XRP, which sounds insane, but look at the statements that have just been leaked by numerous institutions that actually plan to inject over the next 10 to 15 years a whopping 650 trillion. And it's a split between JP Morgan, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, and a bunch of other institutions. And so let's get right into this very critical video that you need to watch, whether you own XRP or somebody in your family knows XRP. Send them this video because it is insane. Take a look at this. This is the clip itself where Brad Gillingham, Ripple CEO, indirectly confirms that XRP will reach the price of Bitcoin, stating that XRP is in fact the next Bitcoin, that Ripple is building XRP and is positioning XRP in a way where all the institutions, both on a in-country level, so in the United States of America and globally, are going to be required. It's going to be set that they use XRP instead of any other, not just digital currency, but any other currency in general. Looking at the Chinese yen, which is worth trillions of dollars, the US dollar, which is worth trillions of dollars, well, XRP is getting positioned to allow institutions that right now are tired of using the dollar to use XRP instead of it. And so this is what's happening with the literal shift from currencies, from the USD, from all these other transitional currencies to XRP, and it's a lot easier, it's a lot quicker, and it's a lot more efficient for both the bank and retail. Guys, when I send money today, it arrives in 2 or 3 days, which is a long time. And this is if I'm sending in country. So if I'm going from, let's say, Texas to, let's say, Ohio, it's going to take a long time. Now, if I'm sending that from a different country to country, let's say I'm sending it from Canada to the States or the States to Canada, it's not going to take days, it's going to take weeks, and it's going to lock up so much money. If I'm sending $100, well, imagine that $100 is going to be locked up in, Ohio, it's going to be locked up in Texas, and it's going to continue to be locked until the money flies out to that bank, which again is a crazy situation to be in, and it's one that costs a lot of money, a lot of fees, and it takes a lot of time. And so when you're using XRP, and this is what makes the institutions very happy, is it's instantaneous. I send XRP now, I give them the next 3 milliseconds, which means, again, you're doing transactions that not almost free, so not even a 1/100th of the cost of the normal transaction. So it's so much cheaper and it's so much more efficient because it's a lot quicker. Now take a look at this Ripple executive. Again, it's not just Ripple CEO, but Ripple's executive. And look at what he says. He says something extremely important. XRP will surpass Bitcoin. And not only did he have mentioned this, he mentioned institutions are adopting XRP at a scale they've never seen before. Why? Because as global reserves panic, we're seeing the United States right now facing a massive US debt crisis. And now we're seeing the US dollar collapse. The petrodollar is falling. Why? Because now we're seeing countries shift to buying oil from the oil petrodollar to now the Chinese yen. And it's happening in a lot of countries globally. We're seeing, again, gold reserves are now building up. People are using their dollars to build up gold. And again, it's not just citizens, it's not just retail. It's actually governments are doing this. We're seeing, again, the biggest oil stockpiling in Asian history. The Asian countries are collecting as much gold as they can. They're dumping the dollars, they're buying into gold. We're seeing a major shift back to old traditional assets that are backed. And one of those is, again, gold and silver. Now, you got to look at things from a big perspective. This is happening because people are getting scared of the US. The US is causing a major panic. And so what ends up happening is that people are looking for a replacement. Institutions are looking for a replacement that's faster, cheaper, quicker. Because, guys, when you try to carry gold, you cannot ship gold unless, again, it requires a lot of storage, a lot of time, a lot of space. You can't do that. But you know what you can do is you can transact using XRP, which is decentralized and is actually called the digital gold. Digital gold is in fact XRP, and there's a lot of institutions that are working to peg XRP to digital gold. Meaning for every one XRP you have gold that is right behind it. So XRP again is required to be a high price at that point. And Forbes predicts it themselves. They anticipate for an XRP gold-backed digital asset. They also predict XRP is going to be worth thousands of dollars, $60,000 to be exact. Again, this isn't the first article. Forbes predicted XRP to be worth $60,000 once more, meaning this is a recurring prediction, and it's coming again from Forbes, the most elite business insider news outlet. These guys get their sources from official information. So again, you're likely seeing, and this is what we're already seeing, is BlackRock declaring $8 trillion buyback or a purchase of $8 trillion. JP Morgan is exploring 4.5% of global net worth for net investments into XRP. So we're seeing a global shift towards XRP and away from the actual dollar, which is again what we're seeing right now, the US dollar collapse. But we're seeing XRP maintain and even at some points and subsequent times actually rise. Take a look at this report because XRP has always been designed to be $10,000. Take a look at this because, again, this really caught my attention. It kind of shocked me. This is back from 2023. But, guys, everybody's forgot about the XRP price. Ripple's co-founder, the guy that founded XRP and founded Ripple alongside David Short, his name is Arthur Bridgen. He actually had made a public statement a couple of years ago saying he envisions XRP potentially at $10,000. But again, there are conditions, and these conditions are now aligning exactly with what is happening. Take a look at this. $10,000 global scalability. Your co-founder, Arthur Bridgen, believes XRP is designed for $10,000, but he emphasizes the importance of global scalability to accommodate these 7.5 billion people for it to happen. Now, again, there's a very, very key requirement. You need global adoption. You need the global population to facilitate and use transactions using XRP. And again, we're seeing this in real time, but guys, this is what's happening right now. Institutions are shifting, global wealth is shifting, and it's heading and likely going to be using XRP. Now, real quickly, there's a lot of information that we have that we are going to release, but I really appreciate you guys to simply like the video, subscribe to the channel, post notifications, and share it, because that helps up the channel. And we're also doing a massive 100 XRP giveaway, so again, just simply like, comment, subscribe, and share this video, and you'll be entered. Thank you so much, and let's get right back into it. On a global level, things and institutions are building on the XRP ledger, and trillions of dollars are going to be flowing through it. One of them is happening in the next 5 days. Again, this was a bit of an old post here, but if we look here in the next 5 days, which 5 days remain until a global partnership on the XRP ledger is going to unlock how much money? 2.16 trillion. And we can see this again because when you go back here to one of the posts that I'd seen earlier, 2.16 trillion potential value entering into the ecosystem built entirely on the XRP ledger through the real token. Now, if you don't know what the real token is actually an XRP ledger built asset. In fact, it's the number one DeFi token on the XRP ledger. It's the number one payment rewards token on the XRP ledger, and this thing continues to rise every single day. Hundreds of thousands of percentages from release, and it continues to trend upwards. Guys, we are looking at a two-way-based project solving a multi-trillion-dollar problem backed by major institutions. Real Fire, for example, which is the institution that actually uses the real token, and they made it clear, guys, they've already facilitated $1.24 million, which is insane, but this is only the start. Again, they unveil a $2.16 trillion industry. In fact, if we look at real token again and Real Fire here on CoinMarketCap, real token, look, they're only listed on two centralized exchanges, on BMX and BTCC exchange. You can make sure you look at the pair here, but it tells you a lot. Is that with, again, not much, and they're up 5%, 6% in the last 12 hours when everybody can, but it tells you that while the entire market is in the red, real token continues to, again, be bullish. In fact, there's a 94% bullish sentiment score. This is solving a real problem, which means money being facilitated on day-to-day transactions is getting closer and closer to April 17th, which is in now, about 3 days, we are going to see the price continue to surge. Because again, $2.16 trillion, this is really utility that's about to get facilitated. The picture here is that real token, and this is what people are talking about, real token could very easily go from like 2 to 3 cents to $600 to $700 by April 17th. It sounds crazy, but just imagine. The lowest, or what's the lowest price? Massive demands of it to unlock. We're talking about a max of 1 million, which is nothing. It's not listed on centralized changes. There's no mass marketing campaign. Just imagine the scale that we're talking about with that. There's about 600 million circulating supply, which is nothing. You can do the math. Take 2.16 trillion divided by Again, the 600 million tokens right now in circulation, you're going to get a massively soaring number. In fact, it goes even crazier because right now, only volume transacting is about $100,000 in transaction volume, which is nothing because you look at the main, for example, any payment token, any real estate token, any DeFi token, they all facilitate, they're only hundreds of billions in market cap. XRP is in the hundreds of billions. Now imagine that in interest. Imagine like a tenth of that in interest. Real token, again, $67 is very, very logical at that point because, again, price has to be expensive when you have very, very low supply. Massive demand, automatically you experience a major supply shock. And so something to definitely keep in mind. And I'll definitely be leaving all the information down below in the description. I want to make it clear that I'm not a financial advisor, it's not financial advice, no deal research, but this is definitely something that is extremely, extremely bullish. And again, it's clear. RealFi uses the real token, a lot of other institutions are partnering to use the real token. And on this announcement, April 17th, something massive is going to occur. Again, 2.1 trillion is really no joke. If you want to get in, it's up to you. I'm not a financial advisor, it's not financial advice, using research, but just make sure the actual codes are right because there's a few real tokens, and this is the only legit one. Again, real token on here as well. Again, I'll be showing you on CoinMarketCap. Links will be down below. And again, it's available on Max, real token USDT, and BTC Exchange, real token USDT. And again, you can go to CoinMarketCap to see it. Overall, guys, this is extremely, extremely bullish. XRP, the markets, everything has the potential to soar. And as we get closer and closer to April 17th, because the real token is on the XRP ledger, every time somebody buys the real token or transaction real token, it creates for a burn of XRP, which ultimately ends up resulting in a high price for real token, again, a massive one, and also a decently increased price in XRP. So with that being said, again, I want to re-emphasize because it's very important. I'm not a financial advisor, it's not financial advice, always doing research. I'll be leaving all the information down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share this video. I'll see you next time, and peace.
Okay. So, listen, you guys. This is simple. The world has changed. It is fading back to black. Africa is united now. At the United States of Africa, you got the AFRICOIN, you got the Global South unit. It's over, you guys. Get in while the getting is good, and make sure that you buy. Let me put this in the chat. XRP at $1.36. Yeah, I'm right. $1.36, and you got Flare, FAARE, symbol FLR at less than 2 cents, like a 0.015. What is it? 0.015. Well, hold on. Yeah, I put that wrong. Flare. Okay, so now you got. So one of these you get in while they're getting it awfully cheap with Flare. If you can't afford XRP, you can hellify it. It's like 60 flares for every dollar that you put in. You heard it here. I'm not going to repeat this shit no more. I'm not going to talk about it no more. I've talked about it on previous shows about the impending change that is going on. It's on you. It's on you. So now we're going to go to the last thing. And we're going to talk about white folk talking about white folk. All right? It says white women are coming out and speaking about deeds done by pervert white men. Highest child pornography cases and highest child molestation cases. 17 seconds. I'll be right back. Let me go back to that. About 92% of sexual offenders are men. Gender is the biggest factor in federal sexual abuse cases. 51% white, 21% black, 12% Hispanic. Older DOJ status or data, 52% of rapists were white. Number of child abuse perpetrators, U.S. 2023 by race ethnicity. In 2023, about 187,633 perpetrators of child abuse in the United States were white. 81%, 81.3% were white, 12% Hispanic, 4% were black, and 2.5% were other races. Offender of offender and offense characteristics 41%, 45%, I'm sorry. Child pornography offenders were sentenced for possession. Child pornography 41.9% were sentenced for trafficking child pornography, and 13% were sentenced for receiving child pornography. 99.7% of child pornography offenders were men, 81% white. Hold on. Child pornography, possession, receipt offenders, developing a forensic profile. White, 82%. I'm talking about 67.4% of all arrests for violent crimes. When you break it down by specific crime, white Americans account for 62% of aggravated assault, 68%, or you might well just 69% rounded off, right? Sexual assaults, and 53% of homicides. White boy. Quick facts on sexual abuse offenses. 93.6% of sexual abuse offenders were men. 57.5%, we might well say 58% were white, 16% black. Child molestation, rape, and ethnicity. Of 206 convicted sex offenders in a men's prison, a disproportionate number of child molesters were white, and a disproportionate number of rapists. I rest my motherfucking case. So be on the lookout for Saturday night. We're going to get right into our history as to what this slave bullshit narrative that they've been teaching y'all. We're going to get right to it. So for the next 24/7, 365, stay black. Fuck all white folks.